Hi, everybody. I'm Jackie, and today we're going to be presenting on building your next generation internet site using SharePoint technologies. And as you see, I added 2007 to the end there, because what I'm actually showing today is not the existing version of SharePoint technologies, but the next generation, which is going to be coming, end of this year, basically. So, get a feel for the audience. How many people here are developers? Great. Web designers? People that consider themselves business decision makers. Cool, okay, we got some stuff for all of you. And I'll tell you what my goals are, just so you sort of know what you're going to learn today. If you're a business decision maker, I want you to leave here knowing what Office SharePoint Server 2007 can do for you in the terms of web content management, so how it's going to make it a lot easier for you to manage your sites, and in terms of community features, to learn sort of what the integrated offerings you're going to get are, and dispel some myths. So there's a lot of misconceptions around SharePoint. I'll go into that later, but I want to let you know right up front, you can brand us, make your site look exactly the way you want it to look, and we do have a lot of things built in, so you'll get the scale and performance that you need from an internet-facing site. If you're a developer, we're going to show you how all of this is built on top of ASP.NET. All the stuff you've been learning in all these sessions about Atlas, you're going to be able to use all those things when you're building your site on top of SharePoint. Plus, we have a lot of great interfaces. Everything is exposed via RSS and SOAP, so that you'll be able to program anything you see today. So if you see it and you think, that's nice, but it's not quite what I wanted, or that's nice, but how can I integrate it with my application, you'll be able to do all of that. We have all the interfaces, both remote from SOAP and built in with an object model that you can run on the server. And if you're a designer, we're going to show you how the core of web content management is separating the content from the presentation. And we use ASP.NET 2.0 concepts such as master pages. We use style sheets for everything. And we have page layouts, which let you decide exactly how your page is presented so that the person authoring the content is going to be able to author their content without making any decisions about the style and without messing up any of the cool things you've been designing. So let's get started. If I can go forward. All right, so basically what I'm going to break up in today is first I'm going to tell you about Office SharePoint Server, because nobody really knows what it means. We've brought a lot of technologies together. I'm going to show you what they are. Then I'll show you about what kind of sites would use this for. So there's some sites you really wouldn't use Office SharePoint Server for. You probably wouldn't use it for a site like MySpace. But there's a lot of sites that you wouldn't expect that Office SharePoint Server is really a great platform. It's going to help you manage your site. You can keep your application features, but it's going to give you the management tools you need so you can focus on what you do best. I'll show you the web content management tools, get into community interactivity, some cool features we've built in, and then finally I'll finish up by talking about how we achieve our scale and performance. So this slide sort of explains where the technologies I'm talking about came from. So back in 2001, we had SharePoint Team Services, which was all about team collaboration sites, and SharePoint Portal Server, which was about intranet portal sites, and none of that is stuff that you guys care about. But we brought them together, integrated them, so that we had a nice integrated management, and that's in the currently released products. So if any of you guys came in here today thinking SharePoint's just for portals, that's true with the existing product. It really is about portals. But if you've heard of a content management server, that's all about public internet-facing websites, and we've brought that into the SharePoint family. So all of the great stuff that you have there, all of the scale, all of the management functionality you have is going to be available today, is going to be available in this next generation, brought together on Office SharePoint Server 2007. If you've heard that there's two SharePoints, it's true. One of them is Windows SharePoint Services. That's the platform that gives you sort of the core functionality. Office SharePoint Server is what adds web content management, adds a lot of the rich functionality we're going to be talking about today. So this is a really broad picture. This is sort of all of our investments across the whole platform. And you're probably looking at this and thinking, this is not where I want to be today. This is too much stuff. I don't care about, running Excel spreadsheets on my server. I'm all about running a big internet-facing website. And the important thing here is you can pick any of these pieces of the pie. You can pick and choose exactly what you want to use. And most of you are probably interested in the yellow segment, the content management. And if you want to, you can just go right ahead and only use content management. But let's say that one day you wake up and you said, my site could really use search. Well, we've got search built in. And it's very deeply integrated. It'll understand about the format of your content, and it knows when to crawl, and it's all very scalable. Same way, one day you might decide you wanted blogs and wikis on your site. You flip a switch, turn it on, and now you've got it. So if you're sitting here looking at this slide thinking, yes, I want versioning and I want workflow, but I could build those myself, the real value here comes from the fact that we have all of these as switches ready for you to turn on, and we've built it together so it's integrated, which means one place to manage all of it, and we've paid attention to the scale, so everything will scale well together. So the question is, what kind of sites can you use Office SharePoint Server for? And I've basically drawn this arrow, this diagram. The ones at the bottoms are ones that are really clear, great sites for web content management for something like SharePoint. Microsoft.com, its country sites are actually running. So if you go to Microsoft.com/US, that's actually running Content Management Server 2002. Xbox.com is running the current version, Content Management Server 2002. A site like Hotmail or local.live.com, you probably wouldn't use it. So the point I'm trying to make here is that, yes, we all know that for sites that are all about news, all about authored content, that's a great place to start using SharePoint. But what I'm trying to show you is that a lot of sites that have real applications, if you have an e-commerce site that happens to have a lot of authored content, that's also a great place to use SharePoint. You can plug in, you can have your applications running side by side, or you can have them running in the same page, and I'll show you how to do that. So what I wanted to do is just show you a quick list, in case you're not convinced of, actually, that wasn't the first thing I wanted to show you. These are sites that are currently running Content Management Server. So this is what grew up into the technologies I'm talking about today. So you'll see that, AlJazeera.net is running this, Xbox.com. There's a rugby site that was serving 4 million pages an hour. We really do have sort of the scale, and this is in our blood. All right, so now I wanted to actually show you what I was just on before, which is a demo. So this looks like an awful lot like Xbox.com. And as a disclaimer at the beginning, Xbox.com is not running Office SharePoint Server 2007. It doesn't even exist yet. This is more of a prototype to show you a cool example. So if you look at the site, it looks an awful lot like Xbox.com, but it's actually running on my own machine. And I'm going to show you through some of the cool things that are interesting here. So the first thing to notice is as we click around the site, you're going to see that a lot of the pages have stuff that's in common with each other. So for example, sorry, my server's waking up. For example, you'll see that the things like the footer at the bottom of the page and the logos at the top of the page are all the same across all of your pages. And the way we do that is by using ASP.master pages. And if you're thinking, well, I've got ASP.master pages already, what we give you when you have your pages in SharePoint is that those pages are versioned. They have workflow attached to them. You can make sure that you know exactly who's going to approve this file before it goes live. And I'll show you some other cool stuff we can do with it later as well. The next thing you'll see is we have a search box that's, like I said, integrated search. And in fact, like if you see something over here, how this has a console and says Xbox 360, since the search is integrated, you could search and specifically say, I want things only where the console is Xbox 360. And that's not going to find you pages that have the word Xbox 360 anywhere on them. It's going to find things where this particular property is the one that you searched on. The next thing you'll see is I'm using integrated NTLM authentication here. It was easy for me to set up for the demo. But we support the full ASP.NET pluggable authentication model. So if you've built a Passport pluggable authentication provider, if you have we have one for LDAP. I know the InfoCard guys mentioned they'll be building one. All of those you can plug right in. So whatever your authentication method you're currently using, you can have those usernames and passwords. You can have those people sign on with the same credentials. Next thing, so if you see over here, this is the gamer tag. I don't have one, so it's not logged on. But the idea is that that's really an application. That could be an AJAX control that's going back to your server. That could be a server control that you're rendering. We included this on every page by putting it in the master page. You could also have controls that ran individually in the page by putting on them page layouts. So you don't have to choose between ASP.NET and SharePoint. You don't have to choose. SharePoint is an ASP.NET application. So any ASP.NET applications you already have can run side by side, or you can include the controls right on the page. Next thing you'll see is the navigation. I didn't exactly duplicate Xbox.com's navigation, but the interesting thing to see here is ASP.NET has navigation controls, like the menu controls, and that's what I'm using right here. But you can build your own navigation controls, and you can download them, you can buy them from partners. Any of those controls you can plug right into the page. But what you gain is that this isn't reading these off of a XML file. This is a navigation provider we give you that knows about the real structure of your site. So if you added a new subsite here, it would show up automatically. Then the other thing, this is getting into what I'm going to show you a little bit later, but you saw some parts of the page were always the same. But over here, Perfect Dark, you can see it sort of has this idea of a big picture over here, some information here, screenshots, features. If I went back to the other game page I have, we'll give it a second. You'll see that the other game page basically has the same format. It's got a big picture on the top. It's got a box image on the side. It's got some content over there. And the way that we're doing that is something called page layouts. So the designer is going to go in and decide exactly how they want the page to look, where the pictures go, what it shows you. But you can see over here that this page looks very similar, but you had a content author. You had somebody else come in and decide exactly which things to put here. So the other cool thing about this content, it's all stored in SharePoint, which we store down in SQL, so you've got the backup and restore and clustering capabilities you're used to. But what's really cool is we also have stuff like recycle bin. So if somebody comes in and accidentally deletes this content, we can go back and restore it. If somebody makes a change, we can choose the earlier version of it. We have all the things you'd expect from a web content management system. And those things, you've got to get used to pointing this. These are sort of the web content management features we have. I'll go into each of them in detail, but the thing I want you to remember is right now, I'm talking about web content management as a tool for you to build your site. If you use these features, they're not going to show up visually in your site. They're not going to make your site look like a SharePoint site. These are all things that are going to help you build your site, make it easier for you, help you manage your site, help you localize your site. They're all things that are going to help you. They're tools. But your site is still going to look exactly the same way that it would if you had built it directly on ASP.NET. Your customers aren't going to know that you built your site on SharePoint. And that's a key point. That's one of the common misconceptions we have. With this version, you completely own the master page. You completely own the content. And all that we're giving you here are tools to make it easier for you to build. So there's the branding, the separation. I'm going to give a demo on that in a little bit. Page authoring, I'll show you the web-based, but we can also have you author in Word or author in any smart client, do a transform and bring those pages right in. We have the site navigation I mentioned. We give you the XML, we give you the navigation provider based on the real structure of your site. We have governance, which is really, really cool. This is all the stuff that you sort of want in a web content management system. Versioning isn't written down there, but we have major and minor versioning. We have publishing schedules, which means, I want this stock report to go live at exactly 8 a.m. tomorrow. Approval workflow, so you can have, this uses the Windows Workflow Foundation engine, so any workflow you can build there, you can plug in right here. Out of the box, we'll give you some cool ones that say, send it to these 5 people to review, and as long as one of them approves it, then the whole thing can go live. And you have formatting restrictions. So this is sort of comes under branding as well. The idea that if you're the designer, you can say, the content author can only use these 3 styles. I know that there's a great rich text editor, but I don't want you turning your page red and bold and using Times New Roman. I'm going to say only use these styles, and your site will have a nice, consistent look and feel. Site management tools is an explorer view, basically, of your site. So you'll be able to see across your site, see where you have pages, where you have subsites, and you'll be able to do things like view all the items that are going to go live in the next 7 days. I'm going to get into performance a little bit more, but we do have a great caching story, and we've got a great web topology scale-out model. That comes into play on the content deployment as well. This is the idea that you can have one web farm where you're doing all your authoring and doing all your messing around, basically for staging, and then you push it out to your production server, so you're never making changes on your live server, which gives you a lot better stability than you'd have if you were making changes right on the machine. For security, I mentioned already, we support full pluggable authentication. We work great with anonymous access. In fact, that really helps our caching story. Multilingual sites, we have this idea of variations. And what this is 2 sites that have very parallel structures, exactly the same pages, but they can be different in the sense that one could be English, one could be French, or one could be for the browser and one could be for your mobile device. And when you tie this in with workflow, you can get really cool things where I go to the English site, type up an article, set off a workflow which puts a draft copy on the French site and sends an email to the French translator so she knows how to go, she knows that she should go in and translate it now, and it won't go live until she finishes. And finally, I mentioned search integration. So I mentioned page layouts, the separation of content and display. And this is sort of a really cool thing about web content management, so I wanted to show this to you. The first thing is this idea that you have content types. Content types would be something like, on Xbox.com, it might be an article about the game, would be one content type. A news article would be another. A review of a game would be another. And each of the content types has its own schema. So a review is going to have a review score, while a game is going to have a publisher and a rating. These are all things that are going to be surfaceable in search, and they're all things that are sort of inherent to the content type. Those are the things that your content author is going to go in and add. But the page layout is what tells you how do these content types render. You know, do we show the rating as a text string, or do we show it as a picture that shows you how it should surface? We let you reference the master page, so you might have one master page or two master pages for your site, which really sort of give you the global look and feel. And then your page layouts will say, like you saw, the two game pages look very similar. They say, these are the things that show on this page, and this is how they're laid out. And that way you get this consistency across all your sites. And if you decide to update your site, if you decide next week that your whole color is going to be blue, you make the change in one place. Or if you want your images to be on the left-hand side, or you find out that you had an accessibility problem and you want to fix up that HTML, you do that all in one place. You don't have to go to each of the individual pages. We also give you some flexibility here. You can say, this text is static right here. You can put web parts on. These can be SharePoint web parts, if you know about those. It's also the ASP.NET web parts that you've been hearing about. And web part zones would let you actually put whatever web parts you want on the page. And you'd use that when you want to give your authors a lot of flexibility. And the last point is just that you can have more than one layout per content type. So you can have one article type, which has all the same schema, all the same fields, but have it surface in a lot of different ways. All right, now I get to show you a cool demo. Oops. Let's try that once more. There we go. All right, so this is the page that you saw when I was just a reader. You saw it said, welcome SharePoint Lab user account. Looks pretty cool. Looks a lot like a site that you'd want it to look like. Doesn't look anything like SharePoint. If I come over here, I'm going to show you what an out-of-the-box site looks like when you're logged in as an admin. I wanted to show you out of the box just so that you would know what do you start with. And what you start with is this site. I haven't made a single change to the site. All I did was click around it a few times. You get this design. Still doesn't look like SharePoint, but the cool thing is up here is your web content management console and your site actions. I'll just jump over to my Xbox site. So you can see, looks pretty similar to what you saw in the other view, except we've got our console up here. We've got some site actions and links up here. So one of the core tenets here is that you're making your changes right in the browser. You don't need to go to a different tool. I'll just show you a few of the cool things we have here. We've got our site actions menu. The site manager is where you get the Explorer-like view of your site. You can see we have some cool reports, like all the draft documents, so all the things that aren't published yet. All the pages that are going live or expiring soon. And you have the options to edit pages and create pages. Let me just double check what order I was going to show you stuff. Okay. So another thing you'll see here, let's go ahead and edit the page once I get my control back. Well, right before okay, I clicked on page status, so you can see the status of the page. Right down here, you see two links. And I didn't go in and type these links. This is part of something called the content query web part. What it's doing is it's dynamically going down and finding you the articles that we had. So if I go ahead and edit the page, it might take a few seconds to launch it into the edit mode. I built this page using content editor web parts. It was a pretty easy thing to do. I just dropped them in. This is a real content query web part, though. One of the cool things we can do, let's get it to work. Show you in a second. So one of the cool things we have is we have RSS integration all over the place. And if this is working, we'll see. What I'll be able to do is get it so that I just click one button. It has a checkbox that says, do we show a feed? As soon as I show it, you get the RSS feed there automatically. There we go. We also have, so we have RSS feed on our content query web parts. We also have it on all of our different libraries. So across your whole site, you've got RSS baked in. One of the things I mentioned earlier is we have SOAP web services on all of our lists and all of sort of admin functions you're seeing. So you could go and create new pages programmatically if you wanted to. Got some style sheet issues here, but what you will see over here with feeds, all I have to do is click enable. And we're going to come back and the feed's just going to be there, right there for your customers. So you see right down here, we've got the RSS feed is added. When you want to save your page, you've got a few choices. I can check in a draft, which basically means it's just for me. I could submit for approval, or I could publish directly because I have permission. If I submit for approval, it's going to basically send it in, not going to make it live yet, but it's going to set off the approval workflow. In this case, I don't have a full approval workflow set up, so it'll just give me the option of approving or rejecting. So I'll go ahead and approve that. And it gives me a little reminder saying that I should check for unpublished items. The next thing I'm going to show you is the actual in-page editing experience that we have. So let's say we go to the game site and we want to add a new game. This is sort of the core of content management. In this scenario, I'm logged in basically as an author. So I decide to go create a new page. Let me pull up my little cheat sheet here of what I wanted to put in my page. So I'm going to put in a page for Viva Pinata. You're going to see a bunch of copying and pasting here because I'm not very good at typing. So we're creating a page for Viva Pinata. Oops. And it automatically chooses the page. So you heard earlier I talked about content types. You can see here there's two content types I could give this, either an article page or a welcome page. And if I choose an article page, there's a lot of page layouts I can choose. I'm going to choose Xbox Game, which is the one I created. While this is loading, I'll copy some of these. So what it's doing is going ahead, it's creating the content type, and it's binding it to the page layout. Since you guys are a lot of developers in the audience, I'll explain the details of how it works, which is we're saving two items. We have the binary stream and we have the metadata. All the binary stream does is say, go look at the page layout. The page layout has all the information about the rendering, and it's grabbing the content that it displays right out of the object metadata, which is all stored in SQL tables. So I'm going to get the option here to give a roll-up image. This is basically what's going to show up on the home page. Then I want to choose a page image. So we have a lot of cool item pickers here. So I don't have to go in and start typing HTML. Instead, what I'll do is I'll go browse for the image that I want to show on that big top area. Got it under Site Collection Images. And I want to use this image for our top area. All right, so you can see that I was able to add an image just by browsing to the directory where we had images, selecting it visually, and putting it in. This is something where if you're a content author, it's sort of nice to be able to hire people that are content authors that don't know anything about HTML. You'll see they're doing this all from the browser, and they're getting a preview of how it's going to look when it's actually built. So let's go ahead and enter some of this information. I'm not going to bother wasting your time copying and pasting. Choose another box image right here. You can see a lot of different types of pickers here. Oops. So this is our date picker. So if you wanted to have your people enter dates, you don't have to build your own calendar control. It's right in here, and let's say that it was published today. We also have choice boxes, so you can say this for the Xbox 360. You can choose that it's one for everyone. Let me copy some of this. So the other cool thing to see, is in our editor. So I mentioned earlier that you have complete control over what goes in here. I didn't bother to throttle this, so you'll see a lot of different options. But you can see that it's got the styles already applied. I'm going to be able to paste right in here. Is that paste? There we go. You can see the background colors aren't great here. You'll see it when it actually saves. But you can see we have a lot of options here. One of the cool things we have is a spell checker. It will actually check across languages. So if you have some text in English and some text in Spanish, it's able to detect that and find out. Looks like everything's well spelled here. You can insert tables, pictures, using the same picture editor you saw before. You've got a lot of rich controls here. Basically, what you see is what you get. If this isn't good enough for you, I mentioned that you had the word you could import from a smart client. And you have control over the styles. So I'm not sure if there are any styles applied right here. But you can see that there's a few styles that are predefined. And if you wanted to, you could remove buttons and tell people they can't use the color button, they can't use the font picker button. All they can use are these 3 styles you provided. So let's save this. You can see that it looks like it's basically all there right in line. And what's pretty cool is that when you publish it, you're going to get the opportunity to see your site pretty similar. I went ahead and published this. I already showed you that you can send it through approval. There's simple approvals, more complicated approvals. So you can see your site. It's up there just the way you wanted it. And when you go back to the home page, you can see that Viva Pinata got added there. So in this case, I had only these 3 things are generated dynamically. But when you're building each of these parts, you have a lot of choices. You can have each of these generated dynamically. For example, you could have a checkbox that says show on homepage, and it'll choose the 6 most recent things that you told to show on the homepage. These are all done using XSL, so you can choose whichever styles you want. And you also have some other options of letting the content author go in and directly, statically adding some text right there. And finally, I'll show you the site manager so you get a sense of what kind of management capabilities you have here. So this is from a management standpoint. You can see all the colors change. This one doesn't look so much like Xbox.com. Just to ease your conscience, this is not something that your customers will ever see. This is something that you can only see if you're logged in. And in fact, if your customer tried to browse to this page, they're going to get an access denied. So these are things that we basically call it hardening. This is something that you can only see if you have the permissions to see it. You can see that we've got we're using the tree control, and we've got an Explorer-like view of your site. And you can see that we give you different views. So you could see all the pages going live, and you can see this on a per-site basis if you choose. So let's go back to the presentation. So that's the web content management features of SharePoint. And the key points to get across there are these are tools that make it easier for you to manage and publish your site. All the stuff you want to do, all the things you've been learning about at the rest of this conference can still be done. These are just something to add on top to make things easier for you. It won't affect what your customers see. It affects how you built your site, and it affects how easy it is, and it affects how much stuff you're going to have to rebuild from scratch. So the next part of my talk is about community interactivity, something that's pretty near and dear to my heart. I'm the PM, I'm the program manager who built blogs and wikis, so I think this stuff is really cool. But the idea here is that you've got a site, maybe your site has nothing to do with blogs and wikis, you're not myspace.com. But one day, you're like, we could really close the loop with our customers. We could really get a better community feeling and get, closer interaction with our customers if we had a blog. We've got a few choices. If you need a really high-powered blog, you can go out and buy a third-party blogging solution. But if you need just sort of the basic blogging functionality, you can flip the switch, turn on blogs, turn on wikis, turn on the community functionality that you want, and it's all integrated, which means that the people posting to your blog are going to use the same username and password, go to the same website, and use the same tools they're familiar with to add content to their blog. You don't have to remember 2 different ways of doing the same thing. It's all built in. We've got a bunch of other collaboration features that you could turn on if you wanted to. We've got discussion boards, which you could use for forums. We've got calendars you could use for event calendars, used to show events. And I'm going to show you a demo of all this now. So let's go back to the site. So on this site, I took some liberties. Here's the community page. And you can see that we have 2 different sites that I created underneath here. One of them is a blog site. So you can see that this blog basically fit pretty closely right in with the rest of the page layout. I did a little bit of tweaking. You can see that I'm not really a designer, so I didn't get the styles quite right. But this is what it looks like when you're logged in as an admin. We have security trimming on everything, so I see this as an admin. But if the person who was only a reader browsed to the site, they would see a much more trimmed experience, and they'll only see the things you specifically want them to see and that they have permission to access. Give that a little while. Well, while that's loading, I'll show you this. So obvious things, we've got an RSS feed, like you'd expect with a blog. We also have the ability to do comments, categories, email this post. So we're going to go in and add a comment. This is the basic stuff that you'd expect. So we've got our page right here. I can go hi. And submit. One of the cool things you can see is that I've got an edit button right here because I'm logged in. If I come over here as the user with fewer permissions, you can already see that you're missing some of the things. Now, she doesn't have the permission to edit the table tennis blog post, and she doesn't have permission to edit the comment I just made. But because we have fine-grained permissions, she does have permission to edit the comments that she particularly on her own made. So that's why you see an edit button right here. So we have this, we basically plug into the SharePoint permissions model that we have, and you can use all those things like edit my own permissions or fine-grained permissions or assigning people to different security groups to decide exactly what you want people to be allowed to do. So the other cool thing is imagine that you're Xbox.com, you want people to have game walkthroughs. So we have a wiki built in this version. What we've done is similar idea to everything else, but the idea of the wiki is making it really, really easy for anybody to go in and edit pages. And that's valuable because it's distributed knowledge management. All of your customers have great ideas, and sometimes if they ask a question, you're not going to be able to be the fastest person to go in and answer it, but somebody else in your community might have the right answer, and it's great if you can enable them to give those answers and share it among their community. It's going to help your customers be a lot more satisfied. So in this case, Xbox.com cares a lot about making sure people know how to play the games. So if somebody's interested, they can go in, see this. You can see some of the links are broken because they don't exist yet, and they will redirect you to the create web page so you can create those pages. Some of them will actually take you to the right pages. And this is the person with lower permissions, don't forget. So I couldn't do anything on the rest of the site, but I can go right in here and you can see I can add new links. And I can change stuff, so I can say, oh, this isn't a green light, this is actually a red light, and save it. Going. So the idea here is basically enabling your people to share information with each other and really help each other out. You saw on the previous page we had links. We have the ability to edit the page. We have page history, and we have incoming links. I didn't do the work to make these pages look perfect right now, so that you're actually going to see these with the SharePoint look and feel, but you can customize them. You could build your own page. There are things you can do to make this look the way that you want it to look. So you can see that we still have some of the pages. You can see exactly what changed from version to version. If I want to look at a previous version, I can see what people were doing. And it's the basics of what you'd expect in a wiki. I wanted to show you one other thing which is just the list of the community features we have. So I showed blogs and wikis because that's sort of what I thought of. But if you guys know SharePoint, you know that SharePoint's great at sort of making a list with arbitrary metadata, which means any sort of information you want to store, we're really good at storing it. We're really good at giving you forms to present it. You saw sort of already our edit forms. We also tie into form server so that you'll be able to use sort of more complicated forms, the kinds of things you build in InfoPath. If I go to, we also have some great views. You can see all the site content on your site. And if I went to create, you can see there's a whole bunch of different things you could add to your site. So we only added a blog and a wiki. But you could see we could also add a photo library. We could add an announcements list. We could add contacts and have all that information searchable. So there's sort of a lot of rich community interactivity features that you get for free because Office SharePoint Server is built on the Windows SharePoint Services platform. Okay. All right, so you guys have seen my demo. It's running on my laptop. You're probably a little bit doubtful of our internet scale and performance right now. So I'm going to give you this slide to show you exactly what we're doing to make our scale and performance, top-notch. And just remember that this is a laptop running, in my thing. When you see it for real, you've visited sites like Xbox.com. They're not slow like my machine is. So the first thing we have is caching at several levels. Full page output caching means that if you have an anonymous browser, the site's going to just be able to serve up a static copy of that page to each of your browsers. SharePoint doesn't even get in the way here. This is going directly from your web front-end machines to your customers. Cached versions sending out as fast as you can go. And like we said, we had sites that were serving up 4 million pages an hour. It also lets you do things like post-cache substitution. So if you wanted to still say, welcome Jackie at the top, you could. It would serve up the cached page and then substitute my name in at the last minute. We do blob caching, which means that your images and binary data that's not changing, that's going to be served up directly with no interference. Then we do some interesting things because there is some information that you want to have customized. Maybe you have a members only area where you make people sign in and you're going to show them stuff specific to them. Well, we do some cool stuff. We'll cache the objects in memory so that you'll be able to serve them up much faster on an individual level. All of our navigation nodes are going to be cached, so we don't recalculate, what are all the sites in your, what are all the places in your site before we serve that up. And what you saw on the home page with listing all of your different games, that's also cached. So we're not going to go in and query and find out at the last minute. Once the first person hits it, it's going to be really fast for everybody else. The other thing we have is we have great support for web farm topologies. So here's an example of what I mean by a web farm topology. You can see the first thing we have is an authoring farm, and also called a staging farm. This is where all of the work is being done on your site. So you go in, and you've got the web designers going in, making their master pages and page layouts. The authors are writing content in Word and directly in the web pages like I showed you. And the approvers are approving documents, sending them for review, going off to legal. All of this goes to the web front end and the database server in your production farm. But when you're actually ready for this to go live, we deploy the content out to your production farm. And this farm supports all the scalable topology you'd expect. So at the bottom, you can see a SQL server. That could be a cluster of SQL servers to give you the rollover and fail-safeness that you need. In the middle, you can see load-balanced web front ends. Those are serving off cache data. You can plug as much memory as you want in those, make them 64-bit, and really serve up data as fast as you want. And we even have support to put certain of your services on other machines. So if you have search running, search is pretty processor intensive. You can have your own machine running that. And then when people come in from the internet, they'll deliver their requests and they'll be served up from your production farm. This gives you a lot of stability because if you're working on your authoring farm and somebody makes a mistake, you can test on your authoring farm, catch it, roll it back, and this never even affected the stuff that your customers are seeing. So to finish up, and then we'll go questions right after this, why would you want to use Office SharePoint Server? The first reason is that we have great web content management tools. Things like versioning and workflow, this ability to have parallel sites, these are things that you would probably be building on your own if you didn't use SharePoint. And if you're only needing one of these things and you're sure you're never going to need to use anything else, then you might want to go and build it on your own. But as soon as you think that you might be interested in integrating search and integrating authentication providers, integrating blogs and wikis, then we've got a really great integrated solution that will make it easy for you to deploy the site and easy for you to use all of the features and turn on exactly what you want. We've got complete design control. You saw what the site I built looked like. It didn't have any SharePoint features leaking out to your customers. It looked exactly like the site you were going to build, but you had the versioning, you had the workflow, you had the ability to build it on a separate farm and deploy it out. You get all of the ASP.NET functionality. We use a lot of the platform features you've heard about. You can throw in Atlas here. You can throw in web parts that you've built. You can throw in workflows that you've built in Windows Foundation, in Windows Workflow Foundation. All of these great platform features are just integrated together here, and so you don't have to choose. If you have an ASP.NET application that's already running, you can have them run side by side on the same server and simply either serve up your content pages with Web Content Management with our Office SharePoint server, or you can take your server controls, drop them directly on the page layout, build them in, and thereby have them on all of your pages. You can have them even read from content on your site, so you could have your gamer card read not only from who it knows I am because I'm logged in, but also knowing which page I'm on to show me specifically my scores from that game. You've got the rich stack of platform investments I just talked about. The built-in collaboration feature, so you don't have to go to a separate tool to do your blogs and wikis. You can just turn the switch on and have them right built in. And because we have the support for the performance and scale, we have the caching and we have the web topologies. So that's what I wanted to show you today. I finished early, so we can do questions, and then thanks for coming. All right, let's just go back and forth, so start with you.
Can I ask you to go back to the demo page that you had?
Sure.
You have that, I don't know if it was this screen, but you had a window that had that excellent IE Web Developer toolbar.
Yeah. Yep.
I just wanted to see what like on that page that you created, if you could turn on the table cells for me and see what that looks like.
All right, so let me tell you, I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you would be happy with it. What we did here is I used, let me show you this actually before I show you that. This is the actual master page and page layout that we're using. This is SharePoint Designer. It's got some great stuff. It's pretty similar to, it shares a lot of functionality with Visual Studio. We've got some cool things to see specifically which CSS properties you're looking at. You can drag and drop your SharePoint controls right on the page. You have to be on a game page to see that. So here's the master page. If you look at it, you can see I've got table cells in here. I built them in. If you wanted to, you don't need to use any of these table cells. I took a shortcut. It was a little bit easier. This is exactly the markup that's going in here. When you build it yourself, if you care about CSS layout, you can make this all as divs. In fact, at the bottom, you can see we've got some content placeholders. I have a div with a display none. So you really get to choose what you put on the page. And I chose in this master page that I don't particularly want to show all these things that sometimes show up. Does that answer your question, or do you still want to see the tables?
No, that's all right.
All right. Oh, and the other thing I want to show you is that's the master page. This is the page layout that's using the master page. So you can see that we have, I just have a content, so I put the title where it goes. And over here you can see we have, here's all the different types. So you can see there's genre, and I dragged it on. And these are just web controls, so a rich image field. It's all just in there in the layout, okay? Yeah.
Could you tell something about the integration with the new version of Commerce Server?
I don't actually have the answer for you there.
Because there were solutions which integrated content management server with Commerce Server. Is there any future release of this solution?
I don't know. If you come up afterwards and give me your business card, I can send an email to the right people and try to find the answer for you.
Okay, so maybe you have any other means to provide personalized content or conditional content?
Yeah, we have personalization. You saw that you can log on. When you log on, you have a few different options. Right here, I'm personalizing it by showing you the page. Because it's built on Windows SharePoint services, you can also choose to turn on web part zones and allow personalization in them, which would let me say that, me personally, I don't want to show the game section here. I'm going to drag on a different web part that you built and show those.
But it's
just
user
here.
personalization. I mean, rather, push personalization when you decide what.
Yeah, we also have audience targeting that we get from SharePoint portal server.
Okay. And do you have any statistics, web traffic analysis, and so on?
It's a good question. I know that some of our pages surface in IIS. I'm not sure exactly what what statistics we have for page views and such.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, a business question. Can you talk about any kind of migration path for existing CMS and SPS customers?
So we definitely plan to make migration work really well. One of the coolest things we've done is there's a demo that might be available online, a slideshow that might be available online, and it basically showed that a lot of the key places that customers built custom code in Content Management Server are actually things that are built in now. So I can show you just navigation, for example. If we went over, modify navigation, one of the things that people would have written custom code for in the past, you can now do this all just through the browser. So you can choose, whoa, my style sheets are a little big. But you can choose to sort them manually. I can choose that I want games to be next.
What about SharePoint skinning? That might have been done.
We use style sheets. We store them. You can put them in a document library. You can have them versioned and have them approved just like everything else. So if I show you this, you'll see when we go back to the sites, games isn't going to be the first one anymore. If you go to there's a blog on SharePoint. It's on our main blogging site. I can't remember the URL right now, but we have an actual a big post article on exactly what the migration path is.
Okay. And I don't know if you can answer this, but anything about licensing models that?
I don't know. Sorry.
All right.
Do you have a single sign-on feature?
Like Passport, yeah. So we have pluggable authentication. So anything you build that works with all the ASP.NET pluggable authentication, we can use. We can use WebSSO and Forms authentication.
Okay, so I mean, if I have an ASP site in the same domain with different server, I can have a single sign-on between those?
Yeah, WebSSO. Yeah.
I'm interested also from a business point of view. This looks all very nice if I'm developing content in ASP.NET 2. But if I'm trying to portalize existing content, which is built in other technologies, and I want to be able to skin them, I want to be able to have single sign-on, all that kind of thing, are you going to be supporting any of the standards like a WSRP or any of them? WSRP, it's like web services for remote portals.
So I don't know the answer to that question, but what I do know is that because this is a platform, if you could write code that would bring things in and be able to do that componentization and run it on your machine. So it might require code. We might have it out of the box, but generally, since it's a platform, it's extensible in a lot of ways.
Okay, so like just say for argument's sake, I have like some stuff on a J2E application server, business assets tied up in EJBs or JSPs running front-end content. I'd have to write web parts that would talk to them on my behalf. Is that how it would work?
I'd be making up an answer if I gave you one. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Hey.
You just showed an authoring environment for master pages. From a developer standpoint, is it the idea that you would develop page layouts in this other environment? I mean, are you going to be able to still use Visual Studio?
You can still use Visual Studio. These are the same master pages that you've built everywhere else. The only constraint is that you have to include the web part, the content placeholders that we're expecting. And I showed you already, if you don't want some of them, you can put them at the bottom and hide them. And if you have ones that you want to add, you can add them in.
Okay, and so we would still be able to use all the familiar source control tools and
yeah, you can still use all the tools you're used to.
Normal development. Okay.
Hey.
Yes. Could you tell me some of the differences between SharePoint server, community server, and let's say .NET Nuke?
Is it possible to make the microphones a little louder? I'm having a little trouble.
Could you tell me some of the differences between SharePoint server, community server, and .NET Nuke?
So I'm not that familiar with .NET Nuke. I went to the community server presentation earlier. Community server gives you some really great advanced functionality for blogs and wikis. And I certainly would say if you need the advanced level functionality, they have spam filtering. They can filter by IP address. And you'd be able to run them side by side on the same machine because they're both ASP.NET applications. Office SharePoint Server, the stuff I've shown you today is really focused on web content management, on having static pages, on having content that's authored by people, and by having the separation of presentation and content. All right.
Well, that's actually a good segue into my question. So the company that I work for, we're currently using SharePoint Services 2.0, and we're a SPS v1 site as well. This is great. I really like the content management aspect of it, but you haven't spent any time talking about things like document libraries and lists and all those sort of things. Is that support there, or you guys?
Yeah, that's all supported. We actually avoided talking about it because mostly a web conference. We have a portal server. If I go back to that first slide, let me show you. Let me find you that slide. So this slide shows you sort of a lot of the platform investments. You can see with portals, we have the My Sites, we have news sites. We also have, under content management, we have document management. So we have things like official files, so you can have better auditing control. We have records management. We have integration with, you can save from Word always. We have a lot of your properties will surface in Word in that connection.
So you have the capability of displaying like metadata now as part of the document library display.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Document management's really important to us this release.
And is there better integration with Outlook, say like task lists and events
yeah,
lists?
Actually, if you guys are interested, this release we have a lot of two-way sync going on with Outlook. You can take your document libraries offline in Outlook, so you can go on the plane, sit there, start typing. When you get back, check it in, and it'll send the next version of it up. You can have tasks you can sync. You can sync contact lists, discussion boards. Will sync directly into an email discussion list, and we have incoming email also, so you can send an email and have it appear as a post on your blog or appear as a discussion in your discussion board.
Okay, so the last question I had was, on the discussion threads that you guys are supporting now, are they a little bit, I'm going to say, more industry standard kind of format?
Yeah, we've got definitely made a lot of improvements in our discussion boards this release. We have views that look a lot more like the ones you have. We've improved our threading views. We've done a big re-architecture there. We have better ways to add replies and to show how many replies there are to an item. Yeah. Oh, plus pictures. In the last release, I don't know if you guys knew, but we didn't have the ability to put pictures in line. In case you're worried, that's all fixed. You can put your pictures right in there with the full HTML, and we'll make it safe. So we'll basically go through it and keep the tags that we recognize that we've determined are safe and throw away the ones that we don't know to make sure that we don't get bad cross-site scripting bugs.
Just a few questions here. The first is on search engine optimization. I'm wondering how much control we have over the URL that's being generated, whether we can take some of the noise out of that, and also about positioning of the content on the page. Like, we often try and make sure that some key content's towards the top of the page, but just gets rendered in different positions based on CSS and stuff. Do we still have that flexibility here?
So content, complete flexibility. You can put the content wherever you want on the page. It's a master page, so you can decide exactly what order you want your field controls, you want your placeholders, all of that complete control. In terms of the URLs, we do have everything stored in a document library, which is how we get this rich versioning and metadata. So you will have over here you can see in the URL, it's pages. You'll have something there. You can rename it to be something more indicative for your site.
Okay, and we can probably still use external rewriters and stuff like that for the URLs?
I don't know too much about them.
Okay. Next question is, one of our larger customers does a lot of branding based on partners, and they have thousands of partners that come to the site, and based on the URL they figure out how to brand a particular page. It's typically one physical page, but it's laid out a little bit differently. Marketing folks might have done a little bit of different content based on that partner, but the majority of stuff is still the same. And we want to know, if we went with a model like SharePoint, does that work, or do we have to create thousands of different pages?
No, you could definitely make it work. The suggestion I would give you is you could probably write a control on the page that changes the style sheet based on who's visiting, and that maybe uses Ajax to move things around on the page exactly like they want based on who's visiting. There's probably also, I don't know all the details that are built-in audience targeting, but I think some of those will at least let you control what items show up on the page for different audiences.
And if, say, the marketing team is going into a page to do editing, can they specify that this is the page that I'm editing is for this partner, even though it's one physical page, or do we have design time type flexibility like that? That was one of the main things that steered us away from CMS, and we didn't know if that changed.
So you would say that an author goes into the page and types some content for one person and one for another?
Yeah.
It definitely would be doable. You might imagine doing it with two separate field controls, having one of them being the field control that shows for marketing and one of them the field control that shows for sales, and then have the control I said during render time that chooses which one to show.
Okay. And then the final question, thank you, is release and go live. I mean, are you looking at kind of the ability to go live prior to production, prior to the final release of this, or?
We have our beta 2 is, I don't know the exact dates. If you go online, you search for Office SharePoint Server 2007, you'll be able to find the site where you can sign up for the beta.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. This question is regarding to how is deployment handled from content authoring to production, and when you do the releases, does it need any URL rewrites? For example, if you are going to a content authoring URL, and when you do your content authoring and you publish the page, currently in CMS, in some versions it doesn't support that. You have to write a ISAP rewriter to rewrite the URL and so forth.
We have link fix-up. So all of our links are stored as server relative, and you can have different zones, and we'll do the proper fix-up so that the URLs show up the correct way when you move content.
Also, on terms of deployment, do you need to write any scripts to deploy it, or use Site Manager?
No, we actually have a tool called Prime, which stands for publishing. It's got publishing, import, export, migration. It's got a few things in there, and that's basically the tool that you use. It'll package up exactly what you've changed, send it over. We've got some great ways. You can make it a pretty small file, send it over, and then deploy it on the other machine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, could you comment on what features are part of the base WSS platform and which are the Office portal?
Sure. So this is actually a pretty good slide for that. The stuff in the center circle is in base WSS in Windows SharePoint Services. The stuff under collaboration is in core Windows SharePoint Services. We have some search. We don't have all of the rich search functionality, but we do have the full text. We do have a real searcher in Windows SharePoint Services. It'll go out and crawl your sites, and it's smart about that. It'll actually use our change log to find out what pages changed to know what it has to search. Business intelligence, business forms, search, the rest of the search stuff portal, that's all in the Office SharePoint Server. And then content management, pieces of it are in different places. So basically, in general, a lot of the platform functionality, the capabilities are there in the core platform, and then the actual applications that use those capabilities are in the Office SharePoint Server.
So I'll make mine pretty quick. Beta 2 is May 8th. And
great.
I actually am the business owner for the largest CMS deployed site globally at Microsoft, and I just want to give you guys kudos because we're in the thick of dog food right now, and you guys are kicking butt. So thank you very much, because the stuff, by integrating CMS and SPS and putting it on based on WSS, it's just changed the whole entire. You couldn't do stuff that you could do before. So anybody that has a CMS site, there's really some good stuff coming. So thank you guys.
Thanks.
Just another mention, really. For people based in the UK, I've just started up the SharePoint user group in the UK. So if anybody is interested in this kind of stuff, we organise meetings and that kind of stuff for people interested. So the website's suguk.org. You can go along and register, and it's quite interesting because we're running off community server at the moment, but obviously we're going to migrate over to all this stuff when we can. I know you said you couldn't really mention stuff about licensing, really, but is this only going to be aimed for large sites like Xbox.com, or are there going to be licenses available for smaller businesses that want to do the content management stuff available?
I'm pretty sure that we're going to keep, I'm guessing here, but I think that we have both models. I think we have the model that we have for Portal right now, which is client access licenses. I think that'll be available too.
Hi, this is pretty exciting. We rolled out SharePoint through the company, through the enterprise last year for collaboration, and since we did not have an enterprise document management system, people started using this as that, and they started putting in a lot of documents, which kind of created a problem with backups. I mean, backups were taking an enormous amount of time, And when we approached Microsoft saying, hey, this is a problem, we are requesting that our users don't put documents in because it's rolling into the business hours for us to back it up. The only options that they had for us were we had to go with a third-party solution. So what is the plan going forward for backing up huge SharePoint sites? That's my first question, and I have a second question. You touched upon the wikis and blog features within the new SharePoint. I'm faced with putting in a point solution at this point for wikis, like a media wiki or a perspective or something like that, because the business users or the engineering users in the company feel like SharePoint is restricting them because it's too rigid, and they want something like a wiki for collaboration. And I have the dilemma now of, okay, is this going to be a full-featured wiki that I probably have to wait for, or I have to provide them a point solution at this time, maybe a media wiki or a perspective? So can you comment on those two?
So for backup, I don't know all the details. All the questions I can't answer here, I'm sorry, I'm the only one that my team sent, but we have a bunch of blogs, and you can go to those blogs if you search for SharePoint, and you can ask those questions, and we've got lots of great people manning those blogs that'll be able to answer your questions. For wikis, I'd say that we probably have a lot of the key functionality. We have, editing, creating new links, we have showing incoming links, we have showing the version history, showing which words exactly have changed. The stuff that would have to be built on top of it, we don't show you right now orphaned pages, so we won't show you pages that don't have any links, although we do have a view of all the pages in your site, so you do have that sort of table of contents view. We do have the ability to do sort of dynamic tables like FlexWiki does, so you can say, this page has a few different properties, you can add them on and then say, show me all the pages and just their properties laid out. We don't have sort of spam filtering, same as blogs, so we don't have blocking by IP. That would be something you'd have to add on top.
Do you have categorization within the wiki itself so that you can subscribe to a specific category within the wiki itself? Do you think that functionality is going to be available?
So we have alerts. So I mentioned we have RSS on everything. So all of our list types, wikis included, we have RSS. We have email alerts on everything, and those are actually very customizable. You can say, you can basically say exactly what filter you want and get alerts just on the filtered view.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi. While evaluating the current version of content management, one of the things that I found lacking was publishing the documents as a service.
Could you talk a little bit louder? Sorry.
While evaluating the content management, one of the things I found lacking was publishing the documents as a service itself. So I want the content management, auditing, versioning, all those features, but my application is not a website, it is an application. So my application wants to make SOAP and queries to the content management and retrieve data and the documents. So the simplest one you showed is search, which will search metadata tags for articles and then display only relevant articles. I want to expose that as a web service. So my application will create a search and retrieve the list of documents and the actual documents as web services and render it within the application, not as a website.
Yeah, you can have search as a web service. And our document libraries there, you saw everything's an ASPX page. You could put your own ASPX pages with controls on there.
But no, these are not controls. These are, it has to be a plain SOAP service with...
Yeah, you can have, so we have our SOAP service directory. We have our .asmx files.
Okay.
You can, so not with the same versioning and management, but we have a directory where you can drop in your own SOAP services, and you can expose any functionality that we have available through the object model.
So this is with the new SharePoint 2007, not with the existing content management system that you have?
I'm a lot more familiar with the existing versions of Windows SharePoint Server. I'm not as familiar with the functionality of the existing content management server, so I'm not sure. But I know that you can write your own web services and surface specific details. So the web services we have right now surface sort of the basics. It's got great batching and functionality like that. But if you need specific SOAP web services, you write the code, put it on the machine, and then you're serving out the data that you wrote just directly against the content stored in SharePoint.
But that's on SharePoint.
That's in SharePoint.
And when these two are integrated, the same things will be available for content also?
For Office SharePoint Server, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
Right now, our IT department, our help desk department, they basically use SharePoint in order to, get a job given to them. Ultimately, people in our company, they'll just post to the general SharePoint page, and then another manager decides, okay, maybe Larry will have 5 jobs and Mo will have 20 jobs. But the thing is, right now in the current SharePoint, there's no way for a person to automatically get alerted when they get assigned a job. Like, we use ActiveD, so it's really easy for them to, like, wrap that up. Are there more powerful ways into that?
Yeah, we fixed that. We've got something now where on our task library, you say send an email when a task is assigned, and as soon as you assign a task to somebody, it'll send it out to them, and they'll get emails, specifically on the ones assigned to them.
All right, great.
Any other questions? I'm supposed to remind you guys also to fill out the evaluations. You know that this is the first time we're doing this?
Excuse me.
Oh,
Just
great.
have a quick question. You touched briefly on the search that's part of the. I'm wondering what search engine is it based on? Is it really an enterprise-ready search for a site that's search-centric?
It's Office SharePoint Search. This is it's related to the search that we're doing in Windows Desktop Search, and yes, we completely believe that it's enterprise-ready.
Any live examples on the website, like treating like tens
So the
of
thing
millions
is,
of
it's
searches
different.
a day for
Well,
that?
so if you guys have used Office, if you've used SharePoint Search in the last version, we rewrote it. I don't know if we rewrote it from scratch, but we added a whole bunch of stuff. The relevance is way up. It's much more functional. So because it's in beta now, we don't have any running sites I can show it to you.
Do you have features that would be supported in some standard search engines like Lucene, where you have dynamic rankings, change rankings of relevancy of searches on the fly?
I believe so. I know we have some stuff like query logging, so you can tell which things are actually being clicked on and do analysis based on that.
Okay. If there's any place I could find more information about that search, would be.
If you look at the blogs and you ask the question.
Thanks.
Hey.
Hi. Currently, I'm from Manila, Philippines, and we're actually using both products, the content management system, 2002, and SharePoint. It's great because if you're merging both, we can take advantage of certain features of SharePoint in our content management system. Just some questions about the content. There's some things that we like about content management system. I'm glad that you have. You said you can modify the workflow now, so we can have. Okay. I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'd like to know is, could you demonstrate to us how, you said that this integrates with Office. Would it be possible for, let's say, if I were the editor or the content owner, can I do my editing and the initial typing up my article in Word and putting the layout there, then matching it with a template on content management system so it'll be published? Because for users, it's sometimes easier to do it on Word than going to the website, editing it on the web page?
That's a really good question. I know that we can take sort of a big chunk of a Word page and we can apply XML transforms and push it in. I don't know exactly how it matches up with the page layouts. It's a good question. If you come up afterwards, I can give you the right email addresses.
Right. Another thing is I noticed when you edited the web page, you could choose the templates that you can use, but they couldn't preview it and there was no way for you to preview the template while you're editing the content. You'd have to save it first and click on preview to bring it out.
So our inline editing is close to what the page should look like. So if the picture's on top, the picture will be on top. If the picture's on bottom, it'll be on the bottom. The difference is we don't have things wrapping around each other quite the same way. It might be something that you could make better with setting the style sheets correctly.
Okay. Last question. One of our common problems with content management system is that users sometimes upload the whole JPEG image, as in the big JPEG image, and they just resize it using the content management system. Has that problem been fixed so that we can limit the users in uploading pictures, or at least putting some certain rules in uploading? I'm
not sure exactly. I don't know if we did it out of the box. I could imagine that you could set up a workflow that gets the picture, checks to see if it's an acceptable size, resizes it if it needs to, and then publishes it. I don't know if we have it out of the box.
For the existing content management system, that's a common problem. So users think that they've resized the picture, but in fact at the back end it's really larger.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
A couple of quick questions. Can you set workflows on a per page, per site kind of level, or is it just one master workflow to approve?
No, you can have separate workflows. You can attach each of them to a library and to different content types. So you can say that whenever you create an article page, it goes to the lawyers. Whenever you create a game review, it goes to our gamer, reviewer group. And you can set up different ones based on content type and based on libraries.
So it's per content type then?
Yeah.
Okay. How much is this programmable? So I could, from code, say, I'm going to create a new page because of some data I got from somewhere else, and put in articles and documents, and then send in a workflow from there programmatically.
It's definitely, all this stuff is very programmable. So I haven't done it myself with CMS pages. I've done it myself with wiki pages, so that you create a new wiki page, use the SOAP web service to set the metadata, and you can do all of that completely programmable. I'd imagine it's the same for CMS pages.
Okay, thanks.
All right. All right, thanks for staying so much, guys. I appreciate it.